Okay.
Welcome to the Permaculture Pimpcast with your host, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy and the Pasture Raised Pimp. Get your recommended daily allowance of permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. Tip a pimp. Stay alert, stay alive. Permaculture is my passion. Oh, welcome aboard, y'all, to episode 141 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, the only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. And as always, PIMP stands for permaculture is my passion. How you doing, son?
Pretty good. That looks like a little Sesame Street intro.
Yeah, you gotta do it that way, because every single time somebody's new to the YouTube, because we're simulcasting on YouTube and then it goes up in the podcast forums, there's always somebody that misunderstands, like, oh my goodness, what happened to these guys? What did we tune into? And please understand that it's an acronym. Permaculture is my passion. And it truly is. But as always, y'all, this episode brought to you by Hickory Ridge Soap from TwoOldCrowsHomestead.com.
Turn that simp into a pimp.
Bam! Heaven's Harvest, y'all. 10% off with promo code PERMA. Do you need any? Yeah. You know what's going on in the world right now. I mean, you don't need me to tell you. And in fact, we got rid of the bad news section completely out of this Pimpcast because you get inundated with it all day. We're not about that, although there are times we're gonna have to discuss it. But remember, for all the things you can't do yourself, because we always encourage everybody as much as you can, source everything you can. You're gonna save a pile of money. But the things you can't source, go check out Heaven's Harvest, Christian-owned and operated company. And I hope to get Clayton, one of the owners of that outfit, onto the show before too long. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, look, if you're watching us live on YouTube right now, wonderful. And thank you, everybody that's coming in right now. So many, Two Old Crows is in there, and a bunch of other people as well. And apparently they want to talk about
That's not Two Old Crows. That's Three Little Goats Homestead.
No, Two Old Crows is up at the top, son.
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Howdy, pimps. Yeah. Yeah, so Shelly and the gang knows that permaculture is our passion, and that's what it stands for. But if you check us out later on, for anybody that's going to listen to the audio version of this, you can also check us out in the Fountain app. You could also leave questions over there, and you could also drop some derivation of Bitcoin called SATs, SATs. So once again, if you want to drop some SATs on some PIMPs, go check it out on the Fountain app. It is a cool place to listen to all your podcasts over there. Well, we're going to jump right into it. So straight into the farm news. How's it going, son?
Well, Vicky Savage just asked, with the new blessing in the house, how are parents or grandparents getting enough sleep? I'm getting sleep now. Emily is not. She's on a 2-hour cycle. So every 2 hours she has to feed the baby and stuff like that. But I'm finally not having like an adrenaline spike every time the baby makes a noise. So I'm getting sleep now. How are y'all sleeping with the grounding sheets and all that?
Yeah, I'll cover that, man. But we're sleeping like $1,000,000. I did a thing on Patreon where I talked about the grounding sheets and basically a DIY version of it. And for those that don't yet know, I mean, over on Patreon is where I talked about it. I talk about a lot of specific things over there on Patreon that wouldn't necessarily make a great YouTube video, but it's fantastic content, and it's stuff that just doesn't make sense. I mean, I can go into greater detail. Things I don't necessarily have to worry about on YouTube, I can easily do it on Patreon. And by the way, y'all, if you're just getting in right now, hit that thumbs up. Tell everybody we're live, because it tells, better still, it tells the YouTube people out there to make sure they suppress us. So make sure you hit that thumbs up on the way in. But yeah, we're sleeping like $1,000,000, and hopefully I can cover a little bit of that. Well, I guess I can cover it right now.
Yeah.
This is our podcast. Yeah. So I did this DIY. Okay, if you go out and buy regular grounding sheets, okay, for those that don't know, I'm a journeyman IBEW electrician, been one for 25 years, and I know my way around electricity and especially grounding. Okay, so the store-bought version of the grounding sheets, they work. The sleep was fantastic, but something told me, go back here and check this thing for continuity on these cords. So I did. I didn't get anything on my meter. Then I checked the fabric, the bed itself, the sheet that you put down under your fitted sheet. And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting any continuity here. So I turn it over and I realize the fabric. Anyway, I get with the company and they tell me, yeah, it's more than sufficient based on the Earth's grounding and how all that stuff goes. And the more and more I find out about this grounding, the more I'm realizing, good night, this thing's something else. So anyway, I went ahead and I said, I wonder if I could do a DIY version of this. And I kind of consulted Eric Sider on it. And Eric is a phenomenal researcher in so many different ways, phenomenal friend, phenomenal all the way around. So if you don't know who he is, go check out his YouTube channel, because 99% of the shirts I wear are probably his. Anyway, got this fabric, and I misspoke the last time. And the fabric basically was like $13, $26. I mean, depending on how much you need. I did a DIY version of this for probably $30. And I get the continuity. Now, I had to change some things up. And yesterday, I actually ran a separate ground rod away from the ground that goes to your panel. Now, Eric, this is one of the areas where Eric really helped out, because you're getting harmonics and stuff like that, certain degrees of induction that are coming through your ground wire. So I was like, okay, it seems to be working, but you know what? Let me do something entirely different. I ran an entirely different ground rod out the back. And then, of course, I clip it onto the sheet. Well, anyway, I got copper sheets that are underneath my fitted sheets, and it is working beautifully between the regular grounding that I do every single day with my feet on the bare dirt, or soil rather, because there ain't no dirt up in here. Between that, the Wim Hof breathing, and some of the other things that I'm bringing to bear right now. And now, based on the last conversation we just had on here, started taking some of that CBD. This isn't the psychoact. This stuff ain't going to get you high or nothing like that. But,
well, hold on. There are ones that can.
But it ain't this. I mean,
not the one you're taking.
Yeah. So if you want to know what I'm talking about regarding that CBD, folks, you have got to listen to yesterday's interview that we did with Callie Blackwell. I mean, absolutely. She's being inundated by so many of you out there that she sent me a message, and I wish I would have played it on the show. Well, actually, I would have needed her permission. She sent me a message. It's an audio message. And because she still has a British phone, she has to use WhatsApp to communicate. So she leaves audio messages for me. And you could literally hear her weeping on the other end of the line. She says, I had no idea. She said, I woke up this morning and my email box was full. She said, I had no idea. I let your mom hear the message. How many people are absolutely suffering unnecessarily? And so she's going to take her time. So folks, if you reach out to her, you have any kind of ailment or whatever, she's going to, especially if it's something, that's acute. She's not a physician or anything like that. So she's really something else. And Two Old Crows is right. Her story is truly amazing.
Yeah.
If you want to find out just how diabolical this medical system is, y'all, please listen to her. She's a gifted communicator. And she was a lot of fun also. It got so serious that I threw in a little bit of comic relief. Hopefully it wasn't too, well, I don't care if it was or not. I laughed. It was funny. And apparently she was pretty jazzed up about it too. But I had no idea how many people were going to hit her up. So many people that are absolutely suffering, and so many people that are not getting answers from their doctors. Simple things like putting your feet on the bare ground. Anxiety lately through the roof around here. And then I went back to grounding, and then bam, it goes away just like that. You did it with a baby, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been doing it with the baby at least once a day now. I just go outside. Usually she's fussing whenever I go outside, and then I'll take my shoes off, walk around on the grass, and then she just passes out. And then every single time I get up off the grass, she starts like moving around, waking up and stuff like that.
Really?
As soon as I get off, she starts waking up.
Well, just like that documentary, the lady, that doctor in the documentary.
Yeah, mom was out there with me one time, and she was watching me. I was going from the porch to the ground back and forth, and she'd wake up and fall asleep and wake up and fall asleep.
Wow. That is truly something else. And that's funny because, I'm laying with her. Like today I had her earlier, and I laid her on my chest, and I'm basically everything kind of has come to a standstill around here. Because he'll come down, hey, you want to cuddle with the baby? You're like, yeah, I don't care what I'm doing. I'm just going to drop it. And I had the truck started. I had the truck started. It must have been started for about an hour. I was like, I forgot all about it. I had the baby laying on me, and she is the cutest little thing. And she's growing into her big old chubby cheeks, and she's just as sweet as can be. Open her eyes, and she'll smile and all that good stuff. So
she only cries whenever she's hungry or like has a full diaper.
That's how you were. Everybody says you were the best baby, and that's really the case. So anyway, yeah, things are really just, I mean, not, we don't ever really take a break, but just kind of slowed it down a little bit to just really enjoy the baby. But I got
The
to say,
newborn stage.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, and then I got to sit here and fight with Michelle over who's getting a holder at the time. So, yeah,
Yeah. They'll call dibs and whatnot.
yeah. I'm like, my turn. So, yeah. But anyway, this grounding stuff is legit. So give that a shot, folks. I know it sounds crazy. Wim Hof breathing. It is. Your mom has done another version of structured breathing or whatever.
Yeah.
And she swears by it. So between that, the CBD, the grounding, so I'm grounded when I'm sleeping. I'm grounded. Look, y'all, with all the crap they're spraying in this air and in the food they give us and, whatever else it is in the water, you name it. I mean, we better be doing everything we possibly can to mitigate some of this stuff. So I'm bringing to bear, and folks, that's what I'm going to try to do over every special interview that we do during the week. More and more, I'm going to reach out to people that maybe you don't know about or people that might be able to help you. In fact, I got a long list of people I would love to talk to. I have this interest in the esoteric and some of these other things, but honestly, right now we have got, with all the stress that everybody's under, with all the news and the other garbage that's going on, we need to find ways to mitigate some of that, because that's where that's exactly it's the strategy of tension. In fact, that's what they call it. So we're going to bring more and more people on that can help out with a lot of the ailments and a lot of the things that don't cost you anything. So I can't wait to get more of those people on. But once again, y'all, I want to give a shout out to Callie. She was a great sport, and she's being absolutely inundated with everybody that's hitting her up, and she's going to help every single one of you in any way that she can. She made that commitment before she even came on the show. So if anybody's bashful about, hey, should I reach out? Send her an email, get with her on WhatsApp, but don't try to phone call her, because she's like, please just send messages, because she can't talk to you right now. She's just absolutely inundated by the Pimpcast audience right now. And then when the podcast actually goes out on Wednesday, I'm sure she's going to get another. So, hey, y'all, also do me another favor. This information, it doesn't benefit me to say this, but if you know other podcasters out there, please pass her information on to them. I don't care where they are in the spectrum of podcasters or whatever. I've sent it around a little bit, but I'm also asking that because this information has to get out. It's the only way it's going to get out. So do what you can in that regard. Tell everybody you possibly can. All right. So other things that happened this last weekend, Saturday I processed a bunch of birds over at Ben and Denise's at Renewed Homestead. Met so many awesome people over there. One interesting lady was basically tearing tufts out of the chickens. She came over with her own chickens to process. And I guess you got with Ben and Denise about that. But yes, but she had a very specific way in which she wanted it done. And I didn't know
what was she using them for.
She said she was going to use them for, she's taking the feathers off these particular birds, and she was going to make flies out of them. And she's tearing out tufts of the dead chickens. And I'm like, man, I ain't never seen it. It almost seemed akin to some kind of ritual. So I was like, man, what is up with this? And so I said, well, why don't we just stick it in the plucker?
Yeah.
She says, no, I got to keep these tufts like this because it's worth $80. And I'm like,
hey,
okay, if you're going to use it anyway, putting water ain't going to hurt it. None of it's going to be used on.
She knows.
I don't know. Yeah, I've been to 3 county fairs and a hog calling. I ain't ever seen nothing like this. But honestly, there were some really, really awesome folks out of Georgia, a lot of local folks. It was a really, really fun time. And it's always cool when you do these things because you realize, and like I told them when you do this thing, if you've never done it before, is that by the time you get done, it's at that point you just now feel competent.
Yeah. Yeah, usually.
Yeah, so we did.
And exhausted.
Yeah, well, you're taking a lot of life, so all those chickens had to be processed, and man, everybody jumped into it. That's exactly why you don't want to do, when you do classes for free, what you find out, and I know this, believe me, from experience. So if anybody out there ever conducts a class, I know you're thinking, man, I'd like to save everybody money, but if you don't charge money for it, people think that it's fundamentally worthless. So you got to charge something for this. You really do.
If you don't charge for it, then you'll have about 2 or 3 people that are actually doing the work and then a group of people standing off to the side talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I guess that's fine for those so inclined, but
it's just distracting to the people who are trying to learn. Though.
Right. But that's exactly why I won't do any classes. I mean, if it's look, we can get down afterwards, man. But when it's time to get the work done, but this group was all about it, man. They were ready to get the stuff done. So I was really, really pleased. I was really, really pleased that everybody was there. And it was Ben and Denise were fantastic hosts. Food, cookies, muffins, and I probably ate 50% of the muffins. But anyway, yeah, that was a lot of fun. So folks, keep your eyes out, keep your eyes peeled for all this training that is available out there. You just got to go looking for it. And it's not usually expensive at all. Yeah. So other things going on around here. All the things now, anybody that's watched, I did a video a while back of the mulching. And I kid you not, the trees that I initially mulched in that video, let's say the mulch on it was 10 inches.
Yeah.
It's now down to 4 inches. That's how alive that soil. Yeah, that's how alive that soil is right now. So I'm remulching everything before winter rolls around, and it's even going to keep. Folks, this is why I'm such a big fan of mulching. It makes all the difference in the world, especially for your trees. And we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. So, man, we got fantastic weather on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got record warm weather now, and we were just facing record cold temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, that'll weave into the main topic here.
Just to prove a point, the baby was getting hot when I had her outside earlier today.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We're on a south-facing slope too, so that certainly doesn't help any. A lot of stuff going on, y'all. Look, the reason why I keep going on about things like whether it's in the videos or no matter what it's part of, keep in mind that we have a lot of these shows that we're doing right now are, how do I say this? It's to help mitigate what's going on with the inflation. It's only going to get worse. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to talk about that for the most part, but it is what it is. And that's why I'm trying to talk about passive food productions and ways in which you can feed your flock and ultimately yourself, where you can kind of eliminate think about it. Inflation doesn't apply to you when you don't use any inputs to grow your food.
Well, you can yeah, but also just flipping out of the US dollar would save you from inflation as well. Like food, like the worth of the value of a pig is the same whether or not the US dollar is inflated or not. You know what I mean? Like it'll still feed you for X amount of days.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but if you're on the wagon of, and I'm not criticizing anybody here, but if you're still in that mode of having to go down and buy a ton of feed to feed that pig, well, you're not money ahead, or certainly you're definitely not money ahead when it comes to chickens.
Yeah.
If you're having to fatten up those birds and those pigs or sheep or cows, you name whatever it is, the more outside inputs you need, well, the less your bottom line. So you're still tied very much to the tether of the inflation. But when you find these clever ways to get out of using that, well, it's a zero-sum game, because on one hand, you're in a position of where, okay, I'm not having to go to the store to go buy feed, but I do have to make arrangements to work with businesses where I get their scraps. Let's say it's an organic bread place like I go to often, or any number of other places where they don't use GMO food, or even if they did, I mean, if that's what you got to do, it's what you got to do. But the point being is when you get down to brass tacks, you can eliminate any notion of inflation just by using these other methods. So that's exactly why I'm trying to focus more and more and more on passive food production, and trees are a big part of that. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. All right, so I didn't get a download from Pastor Lon, and I don't have any shows to announce coming up, because essentially the rest of this year, barring some whatever, I'm pretty much retired for the rest of this year, even though I said I was going to be retired pretty much the whole year. And then here I've been on my bicycle essentially for the last 6 weeks doing festivals. And it was a joy. It really was. So I got to mind what I say. But truth of it is, y'all be on the lookout for any training that's available to you. Any training you can find, because things are getting very consequential.
On that note, somebody was asking about Cat B was saying, I wish you were closer in Northern California. And then Skane's girl commented that Porterhouse and Teal were up in California. And so is Eric. Is Eric hosting any classes out there?
I don't know.
You think he'd be interested in that?
Porterhouse and Teal, you might reach out to them. They have a YouTube channel. I know they're in Northern California. and he's a pretty sharp dude. Yeah, so I'm sure there are really good people all over. You just gotta. It's like everything else, There's nothing that's really wonderful that's just provided. It's like, take for example your news. All the news you get for free is worth exactly what you didn't pay for. It goes right back to the processing classes. You can put on a processing class all you want, but by and large, nobody's going to show up to really do any work unless you charge money for it. And that's exactly how it has to go. All right, y'all. So we're going to jump right into the bad news. Oh, I'm sorry. Good news section. So this is going to cover a couple of things that are, well, I'll just jump right into it. It used to be bad news, good news. Now it's all good news. So right off the bat, I'm going to call the interview that I did with Callie yesterday phenomenal news. Now, it's not wonderful news that a bunch of people that have to reach out to her, but I'm glad. I knew that by her telling her story and how she cured her son and how it was done without the mainstream medical model, I knew that would resonate with so many people. What I didn't expect is just how many. And like I said, folks, if you have some lingering ailment, whatever the case may be, reach out to her. She will charge you, obviously, if she has to help you to a certain extent. But honestly, when I reached out to her before, she's making better stuff, stronger stuff at about 75% cheaper. So she's not doing it to make money. She's doing it for the most altruistic reasons. And there's a massive shortage of selfless people in this world, if you haven't noticed.
Is mom back down to a single drop, or is she still taking a full dropper?
Man, I don't know, dude. She was in there tripping this morning, and she'll grab a hold of this stuff, but your mom's pretty bad about taking care of herself regarding certain things. Like, she knows she needs to do her deep breathing. She knows she needs to go out there and ground, and she won't do it. And it drives me crazy because I know she's busy. I get that, but I'm busy too. But remember, like Eric Sider always said, people care starts with yourself. And sometimes we are our own worst enemy. So yeah, first good news section is Callie. People like Callie exist in this world. People like her that have, folks, you didn't even hear the entire story if you listened to that last interview. It was not even close. If you knew the peril that she suffered and that she still, to a certain extent, is still suffering as a result of her stance and her not selling out, she could have made millions and didn't. That is good news to me because there aren't a whole lot of people left in this world. I know a lot of them are in this chat right now, and a lot of them are listening to this podcast because that's the kind of people we draw, I like to think. But by and large, man, selflessness is all but gone in so many places on this planet. Now, every time I go to one of these homestead festivals, you see it in the most massive ways. People would give you the shirt off their backs. And that's why I think so many of us kind of, even to our own detriment, go to these things because we know that it's a place where we're going to find community. So I'm going to encourage everybody else out there to do that and also seek people. And good night, man. I can't wait to link up with her in person. In fact, son, I was thinking about using Callie for our intro music in the beginning because she has that British accent. Welcome to Perma Pastures Farm.
Yes, she could.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
She would actually be pretty good at it. I might have to enlist her for that.
Welcome to the Permaculture Pimpcast. That's what you have to have. That's what you have to have.
For your permaculture. Yeah, I'm gonna get that Brit. She told me I sounded like an Aussie last time, so I got to get this down. I'm gonna have to do some. I'm gonna have to do a little practicing on that. All right, some other good. This is good news to me anyway. Sam Bankman fraud found guilty on all charges. And he's up for a maximum of 110 years. Let's see if this clown actually gets it.
They threw him all the way under the bus.
Yeah, they didn't. They backed the bus back over him, even though he was working at the behest of a lot of big money interests. Of course, you'll never hear about those folks.
Even they can't stand Marchies.
Yeah. Boy, can you imagine, man? You take that little fruitcake and drop him off in a prison.
They did. Don't you remember him down in the Bahamas?
Yeah, but they kind of had him in his own little place. You put him in general population, you'd have half them vatos signing on as his proctologist.
Don't you remember him he was complaining down in the Bahamas. I wonder if they did for a few days.
I don't know, man. I think they probably had him. And if he does, it's like Immortal Technique says in that song, they'll probably send him to a country club prison like they did Epstein. Remember that? All right, so some other good news. Check this out. Simple Life recommended states for off-grid living. Now, this came from Natural News. I don't know that I necessarily agree with this. Their list, I mean, it wasn't like a top 10, but they put down Maine, Oregon, Tennessee, and Texas. I only agree by and large, well, maybe 2 of them on this list. Tennessee is definitely a place to go.
Yeah.
But they only lifted, I don't know. Maine strategically, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Oregon strategically, and because of Fukushima radiation, it's still flying in over there.
Oregon, blank no.
No. Well, it depends on which part of Oregon, man. There's a very conservative part of it.
Right.
But by and large, I mean, there's some really, really, I guess when you get out some of the big places, man, there's some really laid back, cool people. Tennessee, can't go wrong there. But Texas, yeah, I don't know if
It's hot.
It's hot, but man, we still have a place in Texas. You wouldn't catch me moving there. And there's a reason why I left. Part of it is you got a for-profit prison industry like nothing I've ever seen in my life. They will shake you down for the change in your pocket. Ask me how I know. Everybody goes on about how free it is in Texas. It's not what I experienced, man. I've never seen a bigger police state in terms of policing in my life. And I wonder if the folks in Texas just kind of accept that that's just a fact of business, or maybe it was just a portion I seen because I saw it all over Sherman, where we lived in DeKalb. I never seen anything more corrupt in my life than the policing system that they had down there. So how they made this list, I mean, like I said, I'm sure it's not all Texas, but the areas where I was at, there was a reason why I no longer live there. Plus, like I said, the heat, there's a time where you ain't growing nothing at a certain particular. I don't know. I personally, the list they have here, I don't know that I would necessarily. What about Missouri? That's a great place to go. I can give you a bunch of tactical reasons why it would be a really good place. So I guess what I'm saying that's good news is that there are places outside the matrix. I mean, clearly California and New York ain't making that list. And there's something of a diaspora from everybody coming out of those places. So just keep that in mind. I guess I'm going to call that good news. All right, y'all. So we'll be back in a second. Hey, we ain't going anywhere. And thanks everybody in the chat. Remember, hit that thumbs up. We'll be back in a second. We're going to get a drink of water. But in the meantime, check out my man, Eric Sider.
Hey, Eric Sider here with your Pimpcast tip of the day. Today's tip, zone planning. The key to efficient energy planning, which is in fact efficient economic planning, is the zone and sector placement of elements. Zone planning means placing elements according to how much we use them or how often we need to service them. Areas that must be visited every day are located nearby, while places visited less frequently are located further away. To place elements in zones, start from a center of activity, usually the house. Zoning is decided by the number of times you need to visit the element for harvest or yield, and the number of times the element needs you to visit it. The more visits needed, the closer the objects need to be, or we waste a great deal of time, effort, and energy visiting them. The golden rule is to develop the nearest area first, get it under control, and then expand the edges. Too often, the beginner chooses a garden far from the house and neither harvests the plants efficiently nor cares for them well enough. Any soil can be developed for a garden over time, so stay close to the home when planning the garden and orchard. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Eric Sider, and if you're in need of permaculture t-shirts or remote permaculture consultation and design, head over to ericsider.com.
That's my dog. And in fact, we've talked about that so many times as far as zoning. Good night, man. I know we've done a podcast or maybe even 2 on it, and I know we've done plenty of videos concerning that. But when it comes down to zoning, y'all, man, it can make and break. I mean, ask Danny at Deep South why he is able to be so efficient. And he hasn't even been classically trained in terms of permaculture. It was just, I mean, it's really common sense where you put things where they ought to be. But so many people situate things in their landscape on the basis of, oh, I feel like it should go here, or you're making your life a living hell when it comes to a lot of this stuff just by not putting things where they belong. There was a lady I saw, in fact, there was a family member where they put something in zone 3.
Yeah.
For the most idiotic and foolish reasons, because they were afraid of snakes. And I'm like, you think, okay, so you got a garden
Yeah, think of it this way. If you're new to if you're new to gardening, new to all of that, you want it close to the house. So that way you don't have time to contemplate how much you hate it on the way to your garden. If you're frustrated with it and stuff like that, you want it to be close to your garden, especially in crappy times when you really don't want to go tend to it. Like if it's especially hot out, or if you're just tired that day or something like that. You want it close to your house. Force the interaction.
Well, especially with certain things, you don't want to put chickens. We've talked about this more times than I can count, where we knew a guy had more degrees than a thermometer, but didn't have any common sense. And he put chickens in zone 5.
Yeah.
And then kept wondering why coyotes were killing them all. I mean, it was idiotic decisions like that are made where we're not putting things where they belong functionally, and we're putting them, oh, I just think it would be nice there. Well, why do you think it would be nice there? And there's really no good reason for any of it.
Well, that's another good example is instead of just focusing on the garden, if you have like delicate or fragile animals or something like that, or baby animals, they should probably be closer to the house. Because if you have to, let's say you have a bottle baby or something like that, you don't want to have to go all the way to the other side of the farm every time you need to feed that bottle baby.
Absolutely. But this is one of the biggest things we run into, y'all, zoning. I know it's not the topic, and it kind of hijacked what the main topic was going to be a little bit, but really the truth of it is that is one of the biggest things that will make or break your homestead. If you don't know what zoning is, just like Eric said, I mean, boy, he is really concise and to the point. He has a very elegant delivery in how it should go. You basically look at it as, it's not really this way, but you could look at it in terms of a bullseye or concentric circles. Start with the one most relevant to you, get that squared away, and then work your way out. So many times we see it the other way around, and then it just makes your life really, really tough in terms of how you manage everything. All right, before we get into the main topic, I want to remind everybody, EMP Shield, y'all, $50 off with promo code PERMA. Once again, you don't need me to tell you the things going on in this world. But honestly, when it comes to your house, what I'm a big fan of in terms of EMP Shield, like I said, journeyman electrician with 25 years experience, is I put in a lot of transient voltage surge suppressors over the year, a lot of them at car plants, a lot of them in tire plants, a lot of different industrial places that I've worked. I reached out. They didn't reach out to me. I reached out to EMP Shield because they have a guarantee that is second to none. So, yeah, EMPs are a concern, but on your house, you know what a bigger concern is? Lightning. And if anything gets past that, past your panel, past your EMP Shield, and makes it downstream and blows up anything in your house, they cover you for 25 G's. That's why I reached out to EMP Shield, because nobody else has a guarantee like that. And also, when it comes to your vehicle, look, man, I'm not looking to go to the club. I just need to get to the house. So that's why I have one on the car. Some of the responses concerning that is, like, where are you going to go after it jumps off? I ain't trying to go anywhere but to the crib.
Home.
Ain't nothing going on but the rent. All right, so let's get into the main topic. Oh, by the way, that's $50 off with promo code PERMA over at EMP Shield. All right. And we got a bunch of other advertisers coming up too, y'all. And I'm really looking forward to one. We've talked about them a great deal. Look forward to what's going to happen with the Texas boys. Probably going to be pretty doggone soon. And they got a deal that's going to knock your socks off, really. And it's pertaining to the topic we're going to talk about here in the future, here in a second. All right. So here we are. We're in the fall. And depending on where you live, if you listen to anything we've talked about here, you've probably heard us more than once cite the work of people like Stefan Subkowiak, probably one of the best in the world at what he does. And then the information that he got from another guy out of Oklahoma State University, Dr. Carl Whitcomb. I think even Eric has even checked out some of his work as well. And his pots are really, really fascinating. And his theories on so many different things. Nobody's done more work on root development, especially when it comes to trees, than Dr. Whitcomb. And when you go and look at his primary work, it's really cool because I know Stefan's talked about him a great deal, but I wonder how many people actually went and looked his work up. When you do, you'll be floored at what you find out. And then you'll ask yourself, like every other thing that goes on in our society, why on earth does everybody tell us to plant? Why do all the garden stores and everybody else, why do they all bring their trees out in spring?
It's just visually appealing. That's when everybody's thinking about it. It's everything's turning green, everything's coming back to life, and that's when everybody thinks about putting in their flowers or their garden or something like that. So that's when they put out the trees, even though it's not even close to the best time to put in your trees.
And that goes right back to the work of Dr. Whitcomb, where he was talking about where he did the work on it and says, okay, man, the root growth through the fall, actually when the leaves come off of any deciduous tree, when the leaves come off, that's when the roots go gangbusters if they're able to. That's getting us right back to the mulch ring we just talked about a little while ago and what that does for your soil life, or your better still, your soil food web down in there. Well, when you plant that tree in fall, you're giving it the best advantage in the world to come out, especially if it's a bare root, because then it will take to the soil that you have better than any potted plant. Now, if you got to get potted because trees are nearly impossible to find these days, well, not entirely.
Or potted because they're for $5
There you go.
on sale.
Yeah.
Usually right before fall hits.
Yep. So 9 times out of 10, everybody's they're going to have you put it all in spring. And now you got to halfway baby that tree. Remember how zones make you efficient? Planting your trees in the fall make you efficient too, because when you plant them, or some in places like Texas, it's going to be best to do it in the winter. Places like Oklahoma, it depends on what when the leaves come off, that's usually your best time to put in the tree, because all the sugars, everything that's going to happen it's dormant, obviously, and now it can go full gangbusters on putting down roots. So you won't have to baby it when spring rolls around or when you go through a drought period, things like that. Remember, we want to write ourselves out of the picture because we're looking at passive food production as much as we possibly can.
The more extreme your climate, like the more severe your winters and the more severe your summers and stuff like that, the more you want to plant in the fall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're going to, and then plus you put a heavy mulch ring down there, put some compost down. And son, when is your best advantage? Let's say it's marginal soil. Well, when's the best time to turn that marginal soil into something that's worthwhile?
Is in the fall. So that way it has all fall, all the rest of fall, all of winter, and then early spring just to get ready for that spring.
Right. So you could have your microbial, let's say it's marginal soil, okay? And you sheet mulch around that tree and you put a heavy mulch ring around it. Every time it snows, the microbial activity under snow is much, much higher than it is any other place on the earth. Yeah, that is a fact. So if you have a snowdrift coming there and it lands on your tree, lands on your pile, believe it or not, that's one of the best things that could ever happen to your pile there, to your mulch ring, is because it's giving that. There's something about the conditions we don't even fully understand, that when it has a snow or whatever, and as it melts, it's just enough moisture to give that soil microbial life the best opportunity to make its own best life, so to speak. Yeah, like the Joel Osteen of planting trees. So here's what I'm getting at right now. If you are able to find them, and I'm not sure that you can, because they're tough to find. Now, I'm going to have some options for y'all that's a little bit off the beaten path here in a couple of days. And like I said, it's going to be made possible by the Texas boys. And the deal they have is going to knock your socks off. But like I said, they're sending me some stuff in the mail. I'll put it in there, make a video, let y'all know how you can get yours. And it even helps us a little bit here on the Pimpcast. But my point being is that right now, if you can get your hands on some trees, maybe on the discount rack at some of these places, and you're in a place where the leaves are coming off, even if they're not completely off right now, it's still not a bad time to put it in, but you're giving your tree the best advantage. Now, look at it this way. Let's say you put it in the spring, and half the time, it's not early spring that they're bringing in their trees. And half the time, those trees are probably, look on the tags, because if you go to those places, you'll find out that half those trees aren't even good for your zone. I don't care what it says on that tag. Go do your own research. Pull out your phone right there and Google that tree. Find out how many trees that they're selling at these places like Tractor Supply and some of these others. I don't know who wrote up the tag on these things, but they'll have them in a zone that isn't even your zone.
Yeah, you would definitely want to double check.
I'm like, what, man, what are they doing? Like, I remember I saw a couple of them here. Like, this is zone. How did they get this? They got zone 4 trees up here, man.
They have zone 4 trees and they have zone 9 plants as well. They got both at this Tractor Supply.
You might be able to make it work, but I mean, by the way, I don't care what's on that tag. Do your own research, even though you're looking at it, if that's one of the places you do go. So just, give yourself the best Well, I guess if the world's getting colder as everybody claims, might not be a bad idea to have one, a zone
Yeah.
higher than yours,
Get
or
some
lower, rather.
variation in your orchard.
It probably couldn't hurt, but the point of it is, y'all, you're going to do the very best. This is why all the planting I'm going to do for the most part. Now, I have made exceptions. I've come across some trees on the discount rack, and I'm like, they were going to practically throw them out. Yeah, I put trees in the dead of summer. But what happens if you put it in the dead of summer? You are going to water like it's like looking after an infant. It really is, but on the tree version of it.
Right. Less cute.
Exactly. Whereas I can go ahead, put it in right now, put a heavy mulch ring on it, put down my cardboard. I've shown you videos on how to do that. Put your hole in, put your tree in, put your cardboard down, put your mulch in it, compost, all that good stuff. Any amendments you're going to put on the top. You can do all that now. And then you're going to find out that you have it's going to absolutely do its thing all through the fall and winter. And then, like Stefan preaches, when spring rolls around, that thing will absolutely, positively explode. You're giving it its best chance. Also, work of Dr. Wickham, you're giving it its best chance of success by doing it through the fall while it's dormant. So even if you have marginal soil, that's why we have such a high success rate. Well, I'd say that's one of the reasons why we have a high success rate on the trees we plant. We don't really have a whole lot of losses. And part of it is using this strategy where you just kind of get it in while it's dormant, let all the microbial stuff do its thing, let them roots do what they're going to do. And then when spring rolls around, boom. And then, of course, if it needs any pruning, you want to get that done too. And then also, the second these leaves come off in the orchard, that's another thing I'm doing right now is pruning. This is also regarding the trees. When you put in the tree, you're going to want to do a little bit of pruning to kind of stimulate things. But also, when those leaves are off, if you want to give it another chance to explode, it's a really good time to prune. And if you need a course on that, check out Stefan Subkowiak's pruning course because he's got one of those. I'm signed up for.
You said it right for the first time on the Pimpcast.
Yeah, I actually got his name right.
Stefan Subkowiak.
I've even done stuff on Patreon, I think, regarding some of that. So, and everything I've learned regarding pruning, I got from him. And like when I was up there in Canada talking to him, I was like, man, before you came along, pruning was one of the most frustrating things for me to do because every time you watched anybody do a pruning class, it was always on feel. Well, I feel like I want to do this. Well, how do you translate that?
Right.
It wasn't until I met Stefan that I realized that this can be done systematically and in a systematic way that is way better than anything else out there. So we'll probably do another episode on pruning and how to go about doing that and the methodology that he teaches that I teach. And I, of course, learned it from him. So it's a very systematic way. Now it's going to be a little bit different on things like peaches and other trees, plums, but generally your apples and pears and stuff like that. This is really anything. It's really going to work by and large for most trees. The same concepts apply. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. All right, y'all. Yeah. If you got any tree questions, any other kind of questions, we'll get to it when we come back. But with that said, y'all, we're going to go straight into Chef Keith Snow.
Hey, Chef Keith Snow with your Pimpcast tip of the day, building food security. Start with the basics. Most people's food storage plan consists of buying a 3 to 6 month supply usually that includes lots of pre-made powdered meals like cheesy potato or cheesy broccoli soup mix, dehydrated chili, oatmeal breakfasts, etc. While I have no problem with these foods and I suggest you put some of them back, I advise people to start at the supermarket, especially those on a tight budget. And even though the foods I recommend are still cheap, they have skyrocketed in cost on a percentage basis in recent years. So now is the time to put foot to butt and start stocking up. Example, you can feed a small army with a few pounds of pasta and a few cans of tomatoes, which both store nearly forever and are relatively dirt cheap. Cook the pasta, then toss it into a pot with simmering canned tomatoes, some dried spices like onion and garlic powder, and some Italian seasoning, or fresh herbs if you have them. Add some cooked ground beef, a little Parmesan cheese, and you have a righteous meal for not much money. Trust me, your family will much prefer the meal I just described as opposed to a powdered cheesy broccoli soup. Remember, a sack of beans isn't worth a hill of beans if you can't cook with them. Learn more by becoming a student at Food Storage Feast. You can save $30 by using the coupon code PERMA. Just visit foodstoragefeast.com.
Yeah, this is part of a 3-part series that he's doing. So there's going to be 2 more parts added to the food preparedness thing that he's got going. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to. I mean, there's nothing more important right now. I mean, there really isn't. So we're all kind of hitting this thing in a trifecta. Eric, I mean, if you think about it, Eric's talking about zoning. Okay, that makes you efficient, makes you able to enjoy farming. It really does. And then we're talking about passive food production in terms of perennial trees. And then you hear Chef Keith Snow. It's funny how it all kind of works together like a trifecta, where he's talking about, hey, everybody sees the writing on the wall, y'all, and you don't have to be caught with your pants down. You just got to,
And he makes everything sound delicious.
Yeah, he does, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time he rolls in town, I'll make sure I'm in town because he was going to stop by. Hey, y'all, thank you to everybody in the chats. There's questions in there, William. I imagine you can get to that.
I was going to start with the fountain app.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and hit this real quick, and we'll get back to you, y'all. A lot of congratulations here. One from Matt Davis.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, y'all, for all the well wishes regarding the baby and all.
Yeah, and in the chat, thank you guys for just the congratulations and everything. It's awesome having a little baby. She's cute.
Yeah, she is a little sweetie, and she loves her grandpa. Yep. Yep, more than anybody. Yep, more than anybody. She loves me most.
I think Emily might be at the top of the list right now.
I don't know. I took all of her kisses, so I don't know what y'all got to work with. All right, so Marcellus, always love hearing from him. He says, I'm wondering if you guys could do an instructional video about how to start compost for beginners. I'll jump down to the end. He's in the military and he's PCSing over to the Netherlands.
What does that mean?
Basically, that's his new duty station.
Oh.
So anyway, he's over there and he's wondering. So in the military, when you're living on post or anything like that, no matter where you are, I mean, they pay you enough just to keep you alive, at least back in the day. You really don't have a whole lot of space to work with. So Marcellus and anybody else that may be interested, over on Patreon is where we go into great detail on the latest method we're using, and it works best really in small areas. We're working with a small compost cage. You just get the materials. But this is once again what we were talking about earlier regarding the stuff on Patreon, where I can literally go super, super in depth. And because I know people are paying for the content over there, I can really give them all the bang for the buck and really go foot to butt, as Keith Snow was just talking about, regarding a lot of these topics. And yeah, composting has been one of them.
If you go over there, look up the 30 bucket compost. That's how you'd find it. That would be the easiest way to find it. Just look up 30 bucket compost on the Patreon.
Yeah, so you could do 30 bucket. You could just take the numbers. You can go 40 bucket, 50, 100 bucket.
But the 30 bucket is what you need to type in to find the videos.
Right. But I'm just saying, I'm glad you pointed that out.
Got one from Rifle on the Fountain app. World War I and Woodrow Wilson. Check out CJ Kimler's most recent Dangerous History podcast. He's doing a deep dive on Wilson, which of course includes the U.S. entry into World War I. Keep it up and tip a pimp.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, he was a diabolical SOB. Yeah, Woodrow Wilson. And people still do not know the full extent of what this guy was. He was a real piece of garbage. And there's been a lot of others like him. Some of the people that we thought highly touted, whatever. History shows they're not exactly what you thought they were, but you got to go out there and look at the primary sources once again. Thank you so much for the kind words. Emily says, do you have any experience using, do you have experience with using, this is a long email. This is from June 9th. Anyway, I sent her some bone sauce. She was asking about deterring moose in Alaska. So I'm like,
I remember
ain't
that
never
one.
done that one before. Well, she got back with me here in November 5th. I applied your bone sauce and had no moose show up. We've had a lack of animal visitors lately. So,
that's good.
yeah, I guess it works on moose. So people were telling me that it worked on these bulls in Hawaii. I mean,
can you imagine the damage a moose would do to an orchard? I mean,
yeah.
I know there's people that don't have to imagine it, but coming from someone who lives in North Carolina, it's hard to imagine a large deer, a very large deer just coming and wrecking everything.
I remember being up in Alaska for Northern Warfare Training Center, man, being on this giant yellow school bus. And these moose, it was just like the TV show, man. They're walking through the middle of town with their babies. And I couldn't believe how massive these things were.
Well, got one in the chat real quick. I'm going to ask this one because this was asked last time and we didn't get to it, from Anthony Honnold. Question. I know I asked last time, but I'd like to know what you think. You and your dad think about the Ellen White tree planting method. Do you know anything about the Ellen White tree planting? Because it's been mentioned a few times in the chat. I haven't checked it out yet.
Well, I haven't done it before. I mean, it seems sound. I mean, it's like they used to always tell you in sapper school. As long as you accomplish the mission and you didn't break any of the 5 principles of patrolling, then it's a go. I mean, that's kind of how I look at this. I mean, there's so many different ways, and people get really hung up on, well, you didn't do this method. You didn't do, hey, if that's the method you choose to go with. I've never tried her specifically, but it does seem sound.
At the end of the day, if it's combining carbon and nitrogen, it's probably a good way to go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have any issues with it. I'm aware of the method. I just have never done it that way.
Got one from, is it your turn? Got one from Strider47 on the Fountain app. He's offering congratulations again on the on the being a dad now, and saying I've earned my dad joke card. But also he's saying, for all you pimp tippers over at the YouTube to see the little bundle of joy, she arrives on screen at the 6-minute 58-second mark on the episode 139. So if anybody wants to see the baby, there she is.
Thanks, Strider. William, I think you're going to have to go backwards to get some of those questions on there.
Yeah, I will. I'm trying to manage 2 different locations at once.
David says, thank you for awakening the sheeple. I mean, this is a little long for me to try to read, but he says he suffers from PTSD and basically been dealt a raw hand by the VA like so many of us have. And apparently, you know, it's looking like the interview with Callie yesterday is probably going to help out a great many people. So, yeah, thank you so much for reaching out, David.
Got one from Eagle Lover, Texas. Do you fertilize fruit trees at all in the winter if they are in containers? Thanks. I wouldn't add it in the winter, but I would add it in the fall in the form of compost, like a light compost dressing in the fall.
These days, I'm never going to tell you to go out and buy any store-bought whatever. If I can't source it or make it in nature right now in terms of fertility, I'm not going to get on any reliance any more than what I currently am to this current system. So that's why we've been going so much about this. I mean, no criticism. I'm just going to not encourage anybody to do it if I know there are other ways to do it. And composting is, in my opinion, the best way to go about it. So we build that soil life. The soil life unlocks all that stuff from the aggregates, or actually the aggregates are a combination of that. But anyway, if we put the right things in place, we're realizing, going all the way back to Fukuoka's book, if we can take that, unlock it, work with the microbes, it all works itself out.
Got one from Nitro Soil. Planted first batch of comfrey roots 4 weeks ago, and today saw 4 out of the 20 roots already have leaves coming up. Very exciting. That's funny. There was another comment in the chat at the very, very beginning that was saying that they planted theirs, I think, late spring, and they've harvested it 3 times so far.
Yeah.
Just this year.
Yeah, and anybody that's used comfrey, look, y'all, we're not saying it just because we sell it. We're saying it because it is that magical a plant. It really is. And they used to grow entire fields of it, but the powers that shouldn't be, the lobby that don't want you to get, because they can't, because the allantonin that's in comfrey, look, like so many different things, like Callie was talking about the cannabis and all that stuff. If you can get it naturally, if your animals will eat it naturally, if you can get all this stuff, well, guess what? That's less money in their pockets. But I don't see them rushing to put any food on my table. So, yeah, so this is why we've been telling everybody we can about the benefits of comfrey and how it can we make comfrey hay. We will use it this winter. I mean, we make comfrey tea. We make comfrey salve. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go at this thing. It is that magical plant. That's why we are big sellers on it.
Got one from Two Old Crows Homestead. Hey, guys. Question. How long do you spend outside barefooted for the most benefit?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, I know nobody ever wants to hear that, but I'll tell you what I do. And I have the book down there, Clint Ober's book, along with this MD that wrote it with him. So it's sitting down there in the dresser. I just got to make time to go read this doggone thing. That's actually the next book that's in my lineup. So anyway, here's what I do. When I get done with the chores, I go out in the morning and preferably the sun's shining, take my boots off, and I sit there and I do my Bible study, first of all. That may, you know, and then plus I'm doing Wim Hof breathing at the same time. So I basically got my feet on the ground. And if the sun's shining, I got my shirt off and I got my pant legs pulled up, got my feet on the ground. So I'm grounding there. I'm getting some vitamin D and I'm getting that first light, you know, as the sun's coming up anyway. There's a lot of good health benefits in that as well. So as soon as I'm done with that, then I'll drift into like a 15-minute meditation. Remember, his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in this law doth he meditate day and night. So, and then funny, you know, he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bring forth fruit in his season. It's funny how that all kind of went together here. But anyway, yeah, so as soon as I'm done with my Bible study, I turn right back around and I do some meditation for about 15 minutes. So a long way around your answer is I'm trying, like every good permaculture designer, I'm trying to stack a bunch of things into it. In fact, when I was at their festival, before I went and helped Darren with the pig processing, my anxiety was so through the roof there. Before then, I don't know if Shelly knew this or not, but literally I took my boots off and I laid on the ground because we were getting started right after lunch. I spent that 30 minutes prior to that on the ground, literally laying on the ground with my boots off, with my shoes and socks off. I got up from there. I felt really doggone good. So yeah, so that just kind of did away. So I did that actually at that place. I don't know that I told anybody about it.
Got one from Anthony Hunnell again. I need to know where to get trees cheap. Just bought 8 at $40 each, but they are large, healthy trees.
Yeah, Texas boys are going to have a deal coming up real soon. They got a package coming in the mail right now. I'll kind of give you a hint on it right now. It's basically going to be a fruit tree package, as I understand it. So there should be like 12 trees in there, and I want to say it's like $80.
Oh wow!
But they're cuttings, as I understand it, and it's a different method of planting that I don't have a whole lot of experience doing, except for when it comes to things like figs. But anyway, you know, buyers, you know, they're out of Texas. I'm going to give it a shot here in North Carolina, and honestly, for the money, I don't think you can go wrong.
No. Like there are other options. You could go to like your NRCS agency and you can get like a whole bunch of or a few plants. They do have like half packages. They don't always have like fruit bearing species though, depending on your state.
Ag universities.
You could go to bare root stores online. Like, I don't know where you are, but like Tai Nursery, Stark Brothers, there's a bunch of different online bare root stores. If you look that up, I mean, they're considerably cheaper than $40 each. That's for sure.
Well, I've gone to Etsy as of late too, but I usually do that for nitrogen fixers. When it comes to other trees, man, I know you could probably get, I think I've done it before for hazelnuts or something like that.
I would say go with Etsy because that's as long as you're doing plants and not seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, you got some maniacs out there, man. Ain't no telling what they might send in the mail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I gotta find the next one. Sorry, dude.
All right.
Oh, wait, no, there was a big question earlier. This lady, I think it was Shelly. I can't remember. Not Shelly from Two Old Crows Homestead, but she has sheep, and there's a bunch of like wild dogs or just free ranging dogs that are chasing and attacking her sheep. What are some solutions for that? I know there were some solutions in the chat, like people brought up electric fence. Some people brought up like Vicky Savage. She brought up a livestock guardian dog. Combination of a few things, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, when it comes to that, I'd use military doctrine for a lot of that. Okay, to make anything impenetrable, and this is exactly what we've talked about a few podcasts ago regarding borders, and we talked about it regarding that situation in the Middle East, where you need 3 things to make something impenetrable. You need an obstacle, it needs to be covered by a threat, and it needs to be observed. Nobody on this planet does this better than, you know, the border between North and South Korea, the one at Guantanamo Bay, and the one all the way around Israel. Nobody does it more securely than there. Okay, I'll leave that part alone because I've talked enough about it. But regarding our place, that's exactly how I do it. I have multiple, like when you have the president of the United States, they have rings of protection around him. Same exact thing. You can look at it. So if you have an exterior fence, let's say it's welded wire. Okay, that might be, even though I got that welded wire exterior all the way around, I got a livestock guardian dog that will go Old Testament on anything that gets on the other side of it and here. So, and then in addition to that, there is an electro net around the sheep. And then inside that electrical net, they have a cage. I mean, obviously, if it got that far, then it's, it's compromised anyway. So anyway, any would-be predators have got to go through a number. They got to be really determined, well, to get through any of my defenses when it would just be easier to go attack the neighbor's stuff. I'm not trying to be mean, but honestly, you want to be a hard target.
You want to make the wilderness the better target.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or your neighbors, it's like outrunning that bear. I ain't got to outrun the bear. I got to outrun you.
Yeah.
So if you're more secure than your neighbor.
Just got to shock them on the way in.
Yeah. So if you're more secure than your neighbor, I mean, when it comes, nothing's killed more animals of ours than feral dogs.
Yeah.
And
a whole flocks of chickens at once.
Yeah. Feral dogs have been the number one bane of our existence in terms of management. And in terms of keeping our stuff safe.
Got one from Lydia. My 1-year-old apple tree has a sprout growing up connected to the bottom. Cut it off? Yeah, I would say cut it off.
It depends. I don't know what it looks like. Really.
It's an apple tree, so it's most likely grafted. And if it is grafted, you'll see a little graft union there. And if the sprout is growing up below that graft union, then yes, cut it off. If it's above the graft union, but still at the bottom, I would still what do you think? Leave it?
No, I'd cut it off.
Yeah, still cut it off.
Anything above the graft union, but below 42 inches, I cut off.
It's only 1 year old.
Okay, well, yeah. So right now, just give it a little bit of time. But if it's below that graft union, that's what you want to be careful of, is that when you do your planting, you want to make sure you don't, I can't stand it when they give you a tree, a bare root, and between the roots and the graft union might be 1.5 inches. I will never do business with people that do that. I'll tell you what, the best people I saw about doing it was this place out of, I got some Evercrisp apples out of this place in Washington State. And good night, man. They had every bit of 8 inches between the roots and the actual graft union. It might even been a foot. And a lot of places don't do that. So that's one really good way to get me never to do business with you. When you leave your ground, when your roots are so close to the graft union that the graft union is underground, now your trees are going to be sprouting off the root stock instead of off of the scion. And that's what you don't want.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm trying to find the next question. Oh, there's another question right there. What does it actually take to render a plant sterile? The idea of sterile plant doesn't quite sit right in my stomach, but I want to understand so I'm not deciding out of ignorance. Sterile plants. Are you talking about like hybrid plants you'd buy at like Lowe's and stuff like that? Some, like most GMOs don't like reproduce. You can't reproduce GMOs.
Yeah, but I don't really. That's going to be one of those it depends questions.
Yeah. I'm kind of running out of questions here, Dad.
Well, I guess everybody kind of got in what they wanted then.
Fed Up says you can give the dog owners a 5-minute flurry of fists.
Yeah, that's one thing you could do regarding some of that stuff. I mean, I remember Danny at Deep South, he had an issue with his neighbor's dogs, and he shot the dog right in front of the owner because the guy was high with some druggie, and he was like, well, hey, he's going to go where he needs to go. He said, boom, now he ain't. And so the guy started tripping. But I mean, dude, that's the quickest. Farmers, man, some of these old school farmers, man, they will not play. They will blast that dog the first time it's out there chasing his cattle. Now they got a broken leg on a cow.
Yeah, you remember that?
Blame them.
You remember that guy in Kansas over on in Tonganoxie? He would shoot the whatever dog came on his property, and I'd like just lay it out in the field or something like that.
No,
or did he bring it back?
He'd throw it up on somebody's front porch.
Dang.
Yeah, he would shoot the dog and then throw it up on their front porch. Now, I could understand if you had to shoot. First of all, I don't understand this concept of everybody just letting their dogs run wild.
Yeah, I don't
get that. I don't get that. I put up, in fact, the whole reason, well, not the whole reason, but a big reason I have welded wire all the way around our place. And believe me, that ain't cheap. The number one reason This goes right back to somebody else. This is another security reason you might want to consider. When you have something like a Great Pyrenees, they're going to want to roam. They're known to do that. The number one purpose of this exterior fence is not to keep the predators out, it's to keep the dog in.
Yeah.
Now it does serve both purposes, but the chief, it's like this. Okay, so somebody said, okay, I need you to defend this apartment building, but it's you all by yourself. You're not going to be very effective, right? But now if they said, now I want you to defend this efficiency apartment that I have you in this entire building, just defend this apartment. Well, you could do that pretty effectively, right? Well, this is the same concept when it comes to your livestock guardian dog. So instead of them just running off and going into a place where who knows, the flock is back here, you're not doing any good running off roaming. That's exactly part of the reason. So that's another good strategy there as well.
Big Bear Homestead said, be like Snoop Dogg, drop it like it's hot. Got one from Palm Lou. Do you propagate your own fruit trees?
We have
a recent video on it, actually, of all those cuttings that we just did with the blueberries, with the figs, with the hazelnuts and stuff like that.
Yeah, but regarding like grafting and stuff like that, we did a video a couple of years ago, not long after we got here. I remember it was like in December or something like that.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, so we got some of those trees out there. I think it was a Jonathan apple and some pears. We still weren't really at that time when we did that particular video. And in fact, I got a grafted tree right out back here. When we did some of those videos before, we weren't really, nobody really knew who we were back then. So yeah, we did have some grafting videos. So Sam, we got anything else?
One more question. Do you water fall planted trees in the winter?
Depends. Yeah, at first. I mean, it depends where you live and what your rainfall looks like. So
I would say no if your ground's frozen.
Did you say in the winter? Or fall?
Yeah. The trees that you planted in the fall, do you continue watering them through the winter?
It depends on where you live. I mean, if it's a really dry winter, yeah, you're going to want to put something out there. But I would typically do it as soon as it's, make sure it's a warmer day, make sure it's not frozen. Hit it then, and then, for the most part, you'd be shocked at how little it needs through the winter.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. So it looks like we got, so many people in the chat right now. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And thanks everybody, y'all, for, I'm going to say one more time, please go back. If you know anybody suffering with any kind of ailments, go check out that last interview we did with, I can't. Callie. Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why it's so hard for me. I just can't imagine an English lady with a name like Callie. It seems like somebody ought to be from California or something like that. But anyway, she was a joy to have on, and she was a wealth of information, and she only just hit a snapshot of what she's capable of doing. So make sure you reach out to her if you got any health concerns. I'm out of the loop in any of that. I don't get anything out of it other than the satisfaction of knowing that I'm just sticking it to the man. And so are you every single time. You don't have to go out there and deal with anybody in the mainstream model. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, stay alert.
Stay alive.
They don't want an individual, just a carbon copy. You spitting that manicotti, yeah, I'm talking saucy. All they want to build is a prison world full of pet Tamagotchis. Like a kamikaze, got me out of body.